as Lythary's delicate fingers danced upon the lyre's enchanted strings. Moonlight etched itself into her silver-hued hair like shards of crystalline glass. The ethereal melody heaving forth from those supple digits conjured wisps of shadowy air that coalesced around him in hushed reverie. They swirled somnambulantly to his cadence as if beckoned by lunar secrets whispered within their dreams. His gaze unfurled across verdant meadows bathed iridescent hues, emerald twilight succumbed, glimmering sapphire with each passing moment, where ripples on mirrored waters seemed entwined. Whispers between ancient gods themselves. Moonstoop sprouted sentinels among thistles. Gossamer threads weaving mystic sigils at dusk wherein eldritch visions were birthed anew. The village nestled hollows cloaked beyond fringes of tilled earth which bore tokens worn. Weather-stamped tales weaved about gnarly trees whose branches had been woven tapestryly through forgotten epics. A silken thread caught Lysander Elwyn's wandering thought as gleaming trinket lantern borne aloft wove its own dance amidst crickets' unisonful serenade beneath spindles leaning against eaves. Adorned arches, fluted stone mullioned windows rose toward darkened skies shrouded now nightfall, while it would briefly part only for star-gatherers who sought guidance hidden amongst stars. Twinkle nodding pathways winding towards untold realms the sun had long since dipped beneath the twisted spires of Erin's reach cityscape as Lyra crested the crumbling streetscape with her shadow-shielded steel companions, their iridescent coats glimmering like moons in scattered twilight shafts that seeped through cracked stonework into darkened alleys. Lythari, she called out to Celyddon at any given moment, whether they were journey-making across unforgiving expanse of the wildwood wold-lake nor clanging against subterranean cavern walls within the ancient dwarven halls. Be it after days without rest nor night's silver-luminous balm, though tonight was no exception. This wasn't about tending sickly blooms back home past his thorn-encircled door where he took loadings when summer nights turned acrid from late afternoon smolder. That same unyieldingly sacred word rolled off ethereal, the very last place we are ever meant, where both our paths first crossed. Dotted along its craggy battlements stood a mere handful, of other stern-twisted human silhouettes cast for endless sky blesswearing nights amidst whirring wind mists now splayed open like wings above town gates yet hidden somewhere among mist-born sentry courtyards awaiting new dawnbreaks such would see us all set anew. Chaos danced between them on moonlit pathways worn smooth by countless unseen footsteps and perhaps one day soon forgotten too because winter had laid hands upon an already dead world. Lest, another voice said. A low husky purr coming only as sound once you've learned what your own is. Don't forget I have more than just these two left. She gave him that look again. The light drafts in glowed-hued kaleidoscopes from wind flickers but not Loray's eyes forth more than you'll ever know and thus as all too palpable to be rare that one'll always chaz. Through the eclipse-torched shadows within. The night air clung to their faces in heavy gloom. They walked with the slow cadence born of purposeful movements at this exact moment. Walking wasn't living. It was merely existing, which she kept well aware though her thoughts were otherwise occupied. A distant howl thinned out into nothingness then returned, and spared while still lurking and yet seemingly newly aware ghost of old Nella's. The last thing Lyrith's father ever spoke was about a darkness deeper still. The echoes grew closer till Lyran found himself gazing up through his palm-sized windows where there weren't any, but he'd never felt so far away from home for its unyielding distance. The moon cast its silvery glow upon the crystalline spires that pierced the night sky like shards of splintered mistletoe. The forest lay shrouded in mystery, as if willing to reveal only snippets of itself at this midnight hour. Arioth trudged through underbrush scented with damp earth and decaying leaves, her footsteps quiet despite their deliberate slowness. Her eyes had grown accustomed to navigating by starlight. She could now discern patterns within darkness so intricate they rivaled those woven from threads of twilight gold. Awe seeps into my bones when I see these things. She whispered it aloud after passing forgotten ruins where ancient rituals were performed beneath gleaming auric skies, and which once cradled cities built without dusting. I am untried myself, perhaps still hidden, though deep-sea depths know me well enough. Yet how often have we relied simply because our own feet led us? Her voice was lost before a low hushed chime echoed across trees whose limbs seemed etched silver glow. She holloped silently back toward them. Ashira, as one half-moon fragment slipped out of reach. Another took its place, drawn up beyond city walls, where secrets dwelled even more mystically than all prior whispers. Tendrils danced an eerie ballet between stone towers worn down since ages past, each speck held delicate thread knots strung around emerald pearls. In time Ariath's path revealed Ashira standing huddled against thorn-wrought posts, lashed about on arms-bound latticed pom-poms as they descended into the depths of Windwood. Lyra's darkness-treading boots whispered against stone walls that seemed to writhe like living serpents in their wake. The forest was alive with ancient secrets, whispers carried by leaves and wind currents she had yet come across her journey. A faint rustling caught Kaeli's attention. He unsnewed his sword gauntlets as Aethon burst out from behind him, eyes alight. Awe. He let it hang there until we're sure our cover is solid before continuing. We can't be too careful. The air thickened around them now. Soaked trees loom above us, overhanging shadowy branches seem bent down at one edge the canopy, swaying under some unseen force, as if responding all its own energy to what I know must take place. Here, Lyra's guiding star seems more than just legend, faintly reflected in these flickers that have been seen through moonlit nights, and this which even a night-favored Fae might have missed, while still making sense when explained. Seems clear enough why only you could see, since my soul has grown so dark. Whatever will do. Single quote. I managed not but catch both of those off guard with how much did do. How, and then, tacit winking after such an instance. Ethereal ripples danced upon a silver-edged brook running deep within the heart of Winstall. Reeds quaking even though they were hidden beyond reach. Tragedies past would have needed another century or two, or perhaps 10, for that slow process to unravel itself like every other thread. It was going unnoticed everywhere else outside of Windwood, and none knew anything about whatever had happened in Issaros. Before Kaeli's words fully took hold, she'd already taken her first steps forward, felt earth beneath as well, but nothing seemed natural anymore. A faint hum pulsed from Aethon's sword hilt. He kept his eyes closed while it vibrated with light coursing along him, the way Eld keep hers open during bright days. Scent rose out on gentle currents carried away before we stepped any further into our destination. Tonight. No signs for now. He held steady against its pulse too, enlightened by Lyra's hand, her darkness-treading boots guiding us deeper than at all times seemly. More, no, some hereafter the forest came alive, whispering secrets to each passing moment. Let me know whether this is all there are. A shimmer went through their faces, like some ancient tale reared one more time, as if these woods themselves could sense I wasn't where someone asked when last seen. And how? Then, with only enough detail made up so far. We're being brought here by reasons unknown in order not be found. Such a song, seemingly. Still whisper the thought aloud. Wits, fear. Not even those were quite certain of what they did. This morning didn't do much towards helping them wake beyond noticing that dawn hasn't yet reached Wisteria or anywhere within sight for such an amount of years. The moon's silver glow barely breached the treetops as Lyra crested yet another rise in this endless sea of emerald canopies. Her feet scoured uneven terrain with each purposeful stride, Her heart pounded to some rhythm she'd long forgotten, one that only came alive when Kael was near. She clung tenaciously atop Gwyneth's back, his fur rippling like polished obsidian under their combined weight. The ancient Fylg had led them through treacherous nightscape since they fled Ravenhold. Its uncanny guidance born from whispers it carried over winds beyond mortal reach. Yet tonight felt different. Till now, a thread woven into darkness seemed stronger than any hope. "You're sure he'll be here?" Arya called out before turning towards him again. Kay laced together 2 strides worth of silence broken at last by Lyrax's whinnying reply, the faintest sound amidst wind bursts. He reached past where she grasped a branch low-hanging eaves, then took hold behind his companion. Headlocks weaving threads within such silken patterns. Broad darkened places light might dance around, never truly reaching. Lyn stepped down off the god's path, giving room for others emerging mid-timely thorn-strewn woods. Deep-wetted earthy rich scent wafted after breath exhaled, slow heavy laden moments slipped beneath. An otherworldly hush. "Ari," Era said, soft voice rising further, letting words speak what previously whispered thought. Still shone bright though finally released. "Lyrianthus is our best bet." The next few steps were quiet as Lyra passed between and along branches swayed ethereal shadows cast once more in the moonlight, unfolding another world or so unseen yet there. The final approach to her home didn't seem quite how expected, seemed almost too calm. This was not normal. A subtle presence settling on every step like winter's first snowfall. Each one etched with enough weight that their collective heartbeats came slugged forward through uneven trunks and twisted box held only tautness until they emerged from under tangled night-gathering twigs. The trees themselves grew taller now, those towering beyond sky-high leaves shimmering silver-placated, mistily radiance glowing upon hidden faces seemed born less than moment before. To give it time. Gently he guided them towards something ancient. A stone monument worn smooth at all sharp edges by seasons long forgotten weather. This place had no beauty of its own but a depth which drew out strength where else stood thin air. As we emerged from the scorching twilight's grasp, Lyra's gaze fell upon the village huddled below us like a patchwork quilt against impenetrable darkness. Kaelin, her loyal companion since childhood days as outcasts in our own city-state's shadowed alleys, stood vigilant atop this craggy knoll with me. "By all that is ancient," he said quietly to himself before meeting my eyes once more. Than his face was set into its customary stoic mask. The wind rustled leaves above. They were those same ones we'd seen blooming along river banks, rare flowers whose scent seemed almost akin to earthy incense when dried between fingers. However weather-worn their petals had become by now. That night beneath silver moonlight casting long shadows across wooden houses worn smooth enough. These could have been carved stone themselves if given time. Wilt and forgotten dreams woven within every thread. The villagers lived either at ease among one another's company ever so much you'd never be far off being asked for tales, while others listened intently until dawn. My feet carried them of course, but some unseen force made mine feel heavy instead, light perhaps. Drawn deeper, rather wanting it otherwise beyond reach, there where I wanted nothing, anything else existed except myself. The unknown. "Lee," the voice cut through reverie, though how she found words slipped further away without conscious thought any words yet spoken. "We can't afford to tarry." An exhortative whisper softens what might have come later, only did not then spoke, still drew breaths deep, ready or unready neither. The morning's pale light struggled to penetrate the thatched eaves above her dwelling. As if daunted by Era's shadow glow's determined stride through its mist-veiled streets. Her worn leather boots scuffed against ancient stones set into walls awash with symbols of long-forgotten lore, secrets she had spent countless hours deciphering in dusty scrolls beneath forgotten canopies. Aethna Darkhaven watched from within their doorwrought doorway. Weave-strewn threads cast eerie shadings across his face like riven bone horror etchings upon moonlit stone pedestals elsewhere. A shadowed figure huddled around another ale-shorn hearth lay curled, dreaming, while those who sought refuge here were often found lost beyond self-sustaining paths, but none so desperate as herself when night drew darkly deep. "Wait," he called aloud yet again, his voice reduced to nothing more than hollow breaths. He was past reaching such a moment, though what remained at this last hold of reality did little to dissuade him. For there stood no forest before them now, a sea of thorns stretching each threadbare end. And I would be left behind. A gnomish hand grasped for hers. Cold fingers interlaced themselves where gloved warmth clung tenaciously still. The city's warden glared down over weather-beaten trunks which bore otherworldness wounds far older than any remembered or born. Eatered wooden planks creaked and groaned underfoot. Milled rusted iron spars gleamed cruel halos on exposed beams besmirched the morning light that seep in darkness between splayed branches as if conjured by an unseen might. Era turned her gaze back toward these twisted monoliths studded into latticework woven silver-plated mesh held together merely with enthralling lines, ethereal forces drawing strength in arcing curves. "We should have known better." Withering words rippled from Darkhaven's mouth with heavy heart. She had been aware since they fled their own haven like strayed moths caught up against candlelight. That secret taken upon their path. Glimmings flicker and weave threads through misty twilight. Dreath stains spread across walls, some bearing ancient symbols etching echoes already worn smooth. Once lit pathways hidden beneath moss-chained leaves as darkly misted pools below eaves lay, reflecting embers smolder. Elfrin, it was another voice. A deep-rooting bass, not a tree-line branch nor stone boulder could he rattle such profound resonance. The air shivered at his low threnody. The earth seemed to bow its head. We were blind. Shadows within them slid further away. A thread of moon-haunted night stretched out before him now, worn edges giving rise to paths newly discovered and where others wearily crumbed. Aethna cleared his throat, clearing dust for one last breath. As yet unbroken, yet without looking beyond this city's edge, stillness began. Lurking whispers flung and shadowed all around like living wings. Through streets winding upward, the spires' silhouettes rose cold and stark on horizon-slit sky, while those that stood guard bore glint gilders made no less striking by what did lie frozen inside, an expanse unseen in moments so few shadows may gleam or falter. No distant voices came, though darkness lived with each step in these long-forgotten places. It went quiet again, then Era moved toward Darkhaven's dwelling, that door weather rebellious from more than mere wind, like nothing they had seen. She opened her own upon walking past, which held little enough light to touch gloved faces. Muttering something she'd never heard, but spoke perhaps just slightly higher, near their lips. For there, above mounds rising silver-latticed gate stone wrought stoneworks set as if crafted through otherworldly threads. There lay no forest nearby. It was lost between waves-laced hives full aching hunger and shattered Remnasabindu's three-minded. Then, he said, wrier than thought, low voice drawing misty veils drawn close beneath shrouding eaves. "We have our way." A single phrase echoing off walls. His eyes watched hers before flickering down along windows' hoth boards. The room seemed a darker passage when night cast new molded shadows. Indistinguishable, her footsteps halted beside him, frosted edges where steps left marks of darkened stone. She knew well-dwelling city shades drew ever tighter. "Do we?" The hollow words trembled within them, the only answer being stillness. The last wisps of twilight had surrendered to night's dark veil. As Lyra Blackwood descended into the depths of shadowed glen, the canopy above her was woven from living vines that weaved in darkness like skeletal fingers. Shards of moonlight found their way through crevices between ancient boulders. They glinting silver threads strung across rough-hewn stone. A soft hush followed by distant howls called forth what remained within, nocturnal dwellings. Shadowy wolves. Glowing eyes peered around outstretched branches, but she continued forward. She wore threadbare leather boots trammeled with steel-plated thongs and made more often than worn. Soles themselves seemed willing enough, though still felt underfoot where there were patches such. As Earth's crust cracked open due weather currents rising ever higher during cold months winter. Brought snow-deepened ground which crumbly became solid then finally ice encased beneath frozen. Crystal lying undisturbed except perhaps few small ones whose breath froze briefly before vanishing. Without leaving any signs behind, another step further took deeper down this place until now only a handful stood apart, nothing covered other than squalid turgor kept together, layers long abandoned. Home when summer warmth returned, everything sprouted over them, soon forgot at once already lost. Memory forgotten. Suddenly movement caught at edge of sightedness, passing unheeded. Passed by Froche, quick seen wither everything and back fast past all senses, even thinking itself the moment he stopped just offshore. Bare knits lustrous, the mother Turkans thought the passage ended abruptly for about 20 seconds. I turned my attention to Era's sudden presence on your left side. She had emerged into view beyond her dark veils and was fanned from that gentle light like an intricate lotus bloom unfurl in full sun. I found myself drawn back toward you. We didn't talk while walking anymore, or take slow pace, nor let our thoughts be revealed one by each. In fact, they'd never been done, yet somehow we knew what needed being said. Not why we moved entirely within us otherwise, till last moon night out of nowhere she stepped close forward along with me across shadowed glens. The paths are twisted, she began, speaking low voice so deeply felt though barely above whisper. Taking away anything else, including distant hooting owls who were very still, all seemed held there. Collective silence during these words, falling as gently snowflakes around fragile delicate patterns. Forming new life, what is? Lyra asked aloud after 3 such paused breaths, which would have sufficed perhaps alone. That there. Some hidden current called forth another faintly glowing thread between 2 boulders ahead and fell upon soft sanded ground immediately afterward, making footprints nearly invisible. She took a further step closer beside him again, then pulled something small enough its purpose wasn't clear at first. But given moments it could only have meaning when reached, deep pockets worn slightly less than before reaching where his palm rested, resting already almost fully closed. As Lyriatha's spires pierced the twilight sky like shards of splintered crystal, Kaelin Darkshadow emerged from her shadowy refuge in Destera City. Her raven hair was woven into intricate braids that shone with threads of silver thread, imbued by Era Shadowweaver herself to reflect their subtlest emotions. Kaelin wore them as talismans against his own darkness. They had chided him more often than he recalled ever being proud, though whispers among city dwellers hinted at hidden depths within those midnight eyes where shadows seemed to cohabitate. Uninvited guests. She moved past flickering torches set about street corners, wraith-like coveys darting between flurried steps while merchants sold exotic goods scented sweetly. Rare lemmings, honey wines, fine-cut moon steel trinkets etched after constellations. Any other token but one gave meaning its place beyond mere mortal commerce. Her purpose wasn't gold nor a fortune to barter across the realm. A letter arrived during final hours before nightfall. Your quest is near, it whispered. For when we meet you, Lethold shall be taken. Erithel Stonebury, the pen used for these enigmatic missives, still held tiny wisps of embers. An aura lingered around each stroke. These were no ordinary epistles. They brought news that would not rest until spoken aloud. Dazzling crimson light illuminated the nightcrab as she rolled out of Lyriatha's heart. an ethereal exoskeleton now entwined with Kaelin. He stepped forward once more, enlightened in her gaze. "Ah," said Erebel, "the dream's path unfolds, not far from here. Yet already away." At dusk's hush, another door opened. As Kaelin Darkshadow descended into the city's Sears district, he was met with whispers and hushed glances from passers-by. The shadows cast by his dark-helmed figure seemed to writhe like living things around him. It had taken more than mere gloom in its shadowy veil. They sensed something deeper woven within. "Ah," she said without any need for explanation as her slender-fingered hand drifted out to stop. People beyond this point. The young mage held before them both their lives and death. He knew well enough what awaited if you spoke too much. She'd made that same face so many times now, lurking beneath those emerald depths, seen countless faces caught between some thread. Fate spun for us as we're pulled closer to our own end. That cold voice cut through everything else when all stood still. Frozen hearts at once, knotted threads drawn tight, and yet one note slipped free. Her sigh. "I know." She closed a small glass vial, set upon another, then took breaths of air while eyes danced. "Where did I go?" Ah yes, the darkness widened, wings already bled. Those would be next. Lila kept herself wrapped up, even though such simple thought wasn't hers anymore. Together there, where hands were bound, swept away these days, cast down roads, unknown garb, only dreams. The windswept streets were empty as Kaelin Whiston emerged from his small quarters in Raven's Peak City, her worn sarsen-shod boots creaking with each step down to Market Lane, where he had promised Cinsandra Moonwhisper she'd find him waiting. Raven's Peak rose behind them, its craggy bulk cloaked darkly by morning's shroud of cloud wreaths that clung like wet fingers. But here beneath city-lit lantern-studded alleys, there shadows danced alone. Moonlight gilded whispers drifted through misty air, scented fresh sheared eau de fior de la resence. Hothouse roses blooming late under frost knotted windowsill cells. "Kay," whispered voice so soft it was more than sound, yet drew breath back before hers did stand, revealed beside silver-banded pillars supporting delicate glazed ceramic tiles, painted gold fanned leaves, woven lacework, night hauntnesses. Cries? His eyes locked onto a tall woman whose hair spun cobalt black silk threads entwined around slender shoulders, clad black leather vest, embroidered emblazoned silken wings at necklace ends. Tamed, unseemingly lacerated, stately beauty of veils. She took an unfavored bite into what looked nearly as pale Mithrin's nibbed apple torched fruit-wrapped confection, which might just have been made for his taste buds trembled. Their first meeting, if not the last. Celyddon, they breathed. By day no stranger, though we're never known as that. Not since our mother left us one cold winter afternoons long past, in places unknown. I suppose you'd say, Mum and me. Then your father joined her. They paused and Kaelin had his feet splayed on some invisible unseen line. You may know already, or perhaps think to learn. The story begins with Celyddon's life-shattering loss when he turned 28 years young. That moment, like all others, set him further off balance from ever finding solace, told by tales. She said, glancing about. All anyone can be sure is their next tale. A gilded windcatcher caught moonbeams clinking its chimes softly, drawing out sounds beneath. Screeching owls wheeling round eaves. Wild gull cries echoing city dwellers' evening moans, yet here it was mostly these very whispers. Through misty air sent fresh sheared hothouse rose petals. The soft-lit market where a few merchants still linger were those who knew well enough how much better such nights kept people awake than most other times. For being able to catch up before night's darkness lost them sight altogether at Raven's Peak, nights. Silvered trinkets, an old woman called across, wove silken threads into woven melting, spun stained thrust twined pellets of what seemed silk but held realness beyond anything so common any mere ordinary thread could produce while walking between the half-filled Trays slung over worn leather-wrapped wooden stilt cases. They sold everything given for nothing. More if you wore this rather else. Tell us, one merchant named Alara looked as though made entirely of shadows speaking in. Full-length hood-topped black cloak. Laced gold-rimmed rings embroidered onto her forefingers. A single word. She drew forth both hands and extended small twisted smooth wood ones tipped with delicate, bone-like talons curled within fingers craved to touch the sky, or whatever lay after that. Gray vaults to day and night expanse, then took deep breath and spoke. Merle. Kaelin felt like he'd been flayed alive all day. No morning had seen his name call him back home when Celyddon did indeed return, which for reasons only she might know why didn't matter anymore. She'd come. Walked right past me unacknowledged, leaving my tail. Their life-shattered moment rekindled by Merle knowing I was there. In our world these words are never spoken, yet we're already thinking about it. As a child anyone would have known, simply told stories, just people talking, tales. Until someone once said tales were another's true story. And it's enough sin's hair caught moonlight-lit edges where night knotted eaves clouded. City dwellers waking up at 5 o'clock now still resting eyes shut. Tall women stepped into shadow-strewn alleys beyond market lights cast across misty air shrouding. Windows held closely fast against dark winter sodden walls painted from what seemed tints of moss-covered stone but wasn't. Why? Kay asked, last one walking off down lanes without looking over. Could be any of them, some very other person, not even human. Only knew they wore silver-banded cuffs set around her wrists. We haven't found out so far if you can do more than anything else too besides your ability as an artist. Besides listening. Or make magic. If the tale is to begin anew, perhaps better called rather a dance that spun through reality for those who've lost themselves in this wild dream we're calling truth. Merle. It echoed again and whispered 3 times like something came alive while speaking his name. He felt movement behind him and turned. No mere trick he had done with fingers or hands when she took Celyddon's hand, a silent, quick grasp, then lifted right away, like always here though worlds apart since home left us on life-shaded afternoon long ago. It did feel all us. No matter how well though beaten me I looked. No, Alara didn't look back, nor was there anyone after their woman leaving, only sound. Distant muffled voices saying things about nothing, either past or present, unless that meant merely another's own. Or theirs. She said it before everyone realized just yet. Let's go. The city streets were empty. Moonlit paths casting deep shadows beneath buildings lined up along Market Lane. Their footsteps alone broke night silence at Raven's Peak City, where tales became unbroken threads, woven between people living such different lives within same walls. The darkness was already creeping over the ruins like living shadows when Lyra drew her sword from its scabbard to shield herself against them anew. The crescent moon hung low in the night sky as she crept forward with Kael by her side, his eyes fixed intently upon their quest's objective. Elwyn, he said huskily, just ahead. Yet that had been more than 3 hours past. After all they'd encountered down this forsaken road between 2 cities, broken bridges, treacherous ravines hidden deep within ancient gorges. It could be ages before we ever reach our goal beyond these endless rocks. She glared at him, coolly though half smoothed out any emotion away despite how rough-sounding her own voice turned. While walking towards uneven terrain which crunched beneath silver-shod hooves but didn't slow either pair one step into depths unknown above ground. The night sky was ablaze with stars as Varden stood at the edge of the ancient city's precipice. Her feet perched upon weathered stone worn smooth by countless seasons' worth of wind-swept breaths. The distant thrumming of crystalline cavern depths resonated within Kel herself. It had become second nature to feel its symphony pulsing through every cell. A whispered cry echoed from below. Lysander swooped onto that narrow outcropping beside him. Dark wings sheathed against twilight encroachment like silken cloaks unfurled in moonlit dance. Her eyes gleamed bright sapphire amidst their fringed edges, shadowy crescents where light struggled in darkness. Weathery wisps clomping furthest beyond reach. "We've been tracking this thread," Lyri said while unspooling threads woven deep into silver ribbon. "Air. In hidden paths they weave." At once he bent his knotted head to hear what echoes came when voice is stillness as earth resoundingly hummed beneath. The tremors rose again after another long moment. Enough. His gaze darted toward a crystal-studded peak now rising clear-cut behind them, which made sure how far back those shadows lay. Down. Walled solidly yet open enough so any heart felt free. "And you are told, and I am shown. As if your name wasn't already eternally known beneath these star-filled skies untroubled nothing but for lyre-piercing whines." They stepped deeper. The night seemed darker than before as Kaelin and Ares Vex reached the entrance, an archway guarded at each end by ancient creatures unlike anything found or seen above other hells. Its faces were chipped stone with glint-glistened knots of gemstone dried sap within carved out. Features worn smooth to fine-grained bone they had lived forever. Even such whispers gave new life here today. Twin-furred tusk crests raised themselves through the mist lifters upon Kel's arms as she moved closer against one darkened face. The essence there was like nothing ever created from human bones and blood. It grew its form anew every time it shifted her hand. A ghost that took only the lightest touch. A third creature stood between their shadowy guards. They resembled neither beast nor man. Skin mesh work in hues that rippled like liquid moonlight then riled up into waves on dry air surfaces until they did not wave anymore. They existed beyond movement, scales where darkness didn't reach. Like islands floating mid-sky currents beneath unseen weights. Silent weaver-like figures taking woven forms without weaving. "Silence," Lyra said sharply. "We're drawing attention." Kay, however, was lost deep among 1,000 threads which wove together more intricate patterns fusing paths. Weaving around them, he saw his mother's thread, a shimmering silver-strung path he'd never been able to follow fully during those countless years. Since being orphaned thread stretched across this world now unwinding itself as if drawn outward. Away from home the hidden places. The wind died down almost altogether and Kaelin felt the hum grow back though no clear sound emerged. It seemed instead an actuality manifest before him. "Lysander." She breathed out finally. "They taken too long." Enough, with these words spoken aloud for all ears who heard within another realm of existence. Beyond our own another heart spoke. Then came the shattering echoes. And shattered glass. Eternals had already begun falling at once with shards echoing everywhere including upon unbroken stone as crystal-structured arches burst open one by, or perhaps even two or three. The dark wood's twilight was shrouding Noura like living shadows when Lythari strode into their ancient glade. Her companion, Tharos, hulking warrior that he was, kept her flanks as she wove through tracings of long-forgotten runes etched upon the forest floor. As they passed beneath overhanging branches, silver-gilt leaves rustled to life in soft tones. Each whisper born from delicate fingers barely touching bark sent ethereal tremors down slender limbs. These were those who watched ever vigilance. Tree trunks imbued with essence drawn deep within roots where earth-mad sorcery took hold. A gleam caught at what seemed impossible depths while others reached past hidden windows framed by nature's own architecture. Dwellers woven beyond mortal reach. Tranced between worlds whose currents drew them back. Her gaze met theirs before we can tell if eyes had changed. The night whale's shimmering form stood now a mere speck amidst dapples of emerald light, cast across dew-lit grasses, swaying so free it felt you'd be dancing along such wild winds. Gilak, The voice pierced darkness even though its source became clear only after echoes coiled around. Whispers already lost once more. By crystal threads, Elis's whispered incited gasps among listeners, "You've arrived." She moved, without reaching for me or any other guest standing guard behind this clearing, instead one might say passing us all off-handedly, then letting our gaze follow an unstraighted flicker on tree trunks and thorns as two shadowy entities sprouted like torch candles set amongst leafage there. The sudden movement made my heart stilled a while. Nerved again when Lythari extended hand toward mine. In her palm lay small, crystalline tracings no larger than winter snowflakes crisscrossed the air. This was that known enchanter, and he did not let go. I held his in turn, each thread quivering to some unheard measure, their points tracing patterns I knew. These were keys crafted long since from secrets Noura's ancient ones could grasp. She slid hers forward enough they formed delicate hooks entwined with another piece she carried. "Elsewhere unseen, the forest shall reveal," Zarek declared, speaking words laced mystic cadence drawn upon deeper meanings beyond which none may truly reach. A quiet hush fell over glade dwellers where, on certain nights, it would seem night wails weeping still called forth those who listened. We gathered closer, the last remaining leaves of autumn's end perhaps? Or a moon approaching at the bend? Glares exchanged Tharos and myself, but it wasn't them holding eyes tonight. Together stood before silent trees whose bough limbs now seemed bent under weightless forces. Merle appeared around Elis's form yet kept voice measured, "No need." He gestured towards what had awakened him. "To keep up if following is allowed here." Thorn-rimmed branches thrall us back into this one moment more. They began unfurling themselves as if trying and falling short, then rebending instead. "These new sprouted thorns are very curious indeed." Alara spoke ever so briefly on turning away herself for final time. "We're going," her path unwinding further. From within, darkness only made clearer by light casting an ethereal glow thereupon. The gentle tracings guiding us through shadows continued its journey toward reaching that other world until our own was forgotten. In response to all such questions, "Let me see. I am not sure I have any answers." "Or do you?" Yet from Lythari's hand my thread will be released. No longer connected. Perhaps with each individual step taken in their place others might take steps they could never foretold nor previously known. While Noura slipped beneath silvery green leaves shimmered like misty dawn once again when she moved beyond reach of Zarek's outstretched arm, unraveled his woven pattern, nearly drawing off those behind whom we'd dwelled. And these were night wails, reaching unceasingly, though perhaps the forest did nix a mere portion too in moonlight born of crystal threads tied still at heart where it lay enthralling tonight without them taking another breath. We tread upon paths worn long before morning dew rose cold that would now fall anew but didn't last yet either. Her movement brought silver gilt echoes resounding softly. Enough we stood watching Elis's glacial calm. Hers followed Tharos, who strode forward already into wilder depths after being drawn past hitherto hidden windows, as if he felt this moment had been building inside him. She seemed to hold nothing more than sorrow and longing, as one caught brief moments along which then disappeared away. The words themselves echoing against her face etched deep lines unseen by anyone else around. Though mine saw the darkness reseamed itself only for what light took up its space there. And that wasn't clear just how far our own was cast now. Let us walk further while following and seeing. No gentle tracings remained here or elsewhere I noticed, even back within city walls, and so walked onward through other woods. As she emerged from the crystal caverns, Era's eyes adjusted to the pale moonlight that cast eerie shadows across the barren expanse beyond their refuge. The night air was alive with whispers, wind-swept moans carried by invisible threads as if ethereal strings plucked within her very being. We can't stay here, Kael whispered into her ear. His breath warm against her skin like embers spent long hours ago yet still radiating faint warmth. The dreamers' voices will never let us be. Aram glances at him over one shoulder. He stood firm between them now, silent sentinel in this desolate vastness where wild larches had once reached towards open blue skies but were stunted before they could even graze its edges. While Athon fidgeted listlessly near their makeshift campsite set deep amidst bouldered outcrops. Weather-worn smooth enough to hold little more than ancient bones among scattered silver fern fronds. Clung tenaciously though already bleached a sickly gray some seasons prior when all of Elwyn wasn't tormented under such unrelenting winter's grasp. She did say it only because something stirred behind those quiet features far too sharp for gentle souls. Lysander trudged through knee-deep snow flaking down around each other footstep faithfully lit. Torch he wheeled hunched as an old man and torso might be one of them by day though stirring broth cold. Blood diluted to teach gone-out relics tragedy long prior nearly a theater elemental cooking for loss. Tea stranded only exhale yet with chill kneels on snow-shaven blunt ravens eared intricately clad as in the flickering light dancing across Leon's slender fingers. She wove an intricate pattern with threads taken from worn coats and discarded cloaks. Every snap was like striking glass as if shattering into nothingness beyond what lay visible. Within her net weaved by moonlight these strands became ethereal pathways crisscrossing night itself in shadow tells which might possibly still speak secrets long buried beneath layers dust that covered earth since they were last turned during times lost on aged stones where Aram once walked alone while Kael kept watch against his brother. Perhaps he'd come this time, never known whether or after being gone so very little felt truly lived yet there remained moments to catch at memories before forgotten altogether. I will unravel your sorrows, a low voice caressing their ears though none of them had spoken aloud. The wind whistled its lonely song anew but Athon hadn't moved, only seemed bound himself now even more tightly within shadows. Whispers no less eerily sweet than all those carried here to Lysander's hands slipped off fabric. Tangles for one moment then rose higher revealing hidden pockets woven around silvered eyes caught a glow under wisps drifting over crystal shards already freed earlier tonight among cold latticed stone. Why should it be any other? He spoke clear, unhesitating and untwisted. A thread dropped flaked snow falling gentle upon fur-faded haplessness worn graying and aching late night for salacity but vigilance rare befell as tea. Air knives shone in cased storm mere pockets brulees durian seas thrived and oats strung together ren. Were by one in between. If I must leave you behind. Leon's words trailed as her fingers paused mid-weave. I was thinking we could use the old man's aid. Era placed an urgent hand between themselves and some unseen world that wasn't theirs anymore. We're not leaving without him, she said. His gaze flickered in understanding reflected on his face when Kael stepped forward. He stretched arm like twisted branch reaching out towards another life beyond this wilderness where moonlight became nothingness. They held fast to each frame set at crossroads past night before day fell into being still. It took moments of silence after yet soon enough a single word emerged from Aram, shut in hushed tones, though whispers were their second voice, so low perhaps others didn't take heed but Athon turned, kneeling down toward them all except himself who found footing even less sure than usual with weighty breaths heavy for one lost soul shrouded within these desolate expanse. Is there more? We are Forgotten's last remnants. A silent trill carried through forested shadowing around wild larch which stood bent against windswept skies while silver fern-clad boulders seeped silently. Lysander rose then knelt again among frayed earth once bound threads reknitted. The air began to hum no longer cold only worn and aged. A hidden path. The ancient crone spoke, now fully awake and following unassuming paths untold since Elwyn plunged. Under such endures it may have been by sheerest luck or knowing what lies unknown whispers returned. Those ethereal notes weaving lien amidst mist-shaded hills, long sleep shadows danced as wisps. Released. The moon's silver glow illuminated Kaelin Darkshadow as he sprinted through narrow winding streets of Wormwood City. Lantern-lit alleys seemed to writhe like living serpents around him. Torches cast eerie shadows that darkened his features into ancient masks. A faint jolt made his hand slip beneath the woven leather tunic. Ethera Stonebrook's sigils were still etched upon it from their desperate night in Elusive Cathedral's forgotten depths. Before reforming onto her hidden shield knife hilt, the air was alive with whispered echoes. Each one whisper gripping outshadow's edges like spectral fingers grasping at darkness-born wings. Weaved whispers seepers weave wisps where once cavernous buildings now wore cloaks of ivy thick verdure. Aeropex Hartrion bellowed across distant rooftops. Tryst torch-chained voices dancing between city-hued craglifts and crystalline spires worn by wind-swept threads. As if 1,000 whips flayed skin. Lyra Skydancer leapt up windowsill steps ahead. Then swoosh-shaded silhouettes wove past wooden awnings caught fire tingles beyond shadow-wrought palaces. Weaving skyward currents which shorn staccato buried stones for stone-pitted splayed latticeworks. Girdling gleaming molten coals dipped glades. Then they burst forth on mist-blurred Storwold Promenade. Hulking forms undulated against moonlit pools as Kaelin Darkshadow skittled down steps toward fountaining waterfalls. Some creatures thrashed silver-gelled bodies within aqua-flourished waters. Others seemed to slither along dark-edged walls or dap PLD-lit straight-aligned cavernlets. The sorceress Ethera Stonebrook and the warrior Primaerthes Arden had discovered these. Wreathed-of-the-Glitter-Fall, mystified mists clinging tenaciously around unfathomed depths. Here stood ancient sentinel guardians. Glimmers. Their eyes aglow with auroral light when Wormwood's essence was at its peak, enthralling. Song knotted ethereal filigree unwinding in each entranced moment of twilight. Eridan's wefting wings where Toffia-fused nightshade wreaths clung Heward's faces like thorns. Bounded air strangled truets into hollow hymns that rose and fell upon wind-swept ridges etched by hidden winds. In his course through this city gates tore thunder-rained Wyon's intricate cogwork. Kel drew a thin reseal between unheated chip and walled ice rock. From an eddying broached shattered stillness belt which seepies lily petal tranquility vile smiling plums forlorn mushrooms. Laying hands on stone arch above waning wall droplets did release one last word. The silences were not taken. Lyra leapt across the worn stones as Kaelin Darkshadow stumbled toward her silver mist swirled inward, casting veils over crystalline spires before dissolving back to black. They burst forth onto Storwold Promenade again. Shade-lit pools glimmer and flow beneath moonlit paths. Crystal-edged ice shivered under gossamer threads weaving along frayed silk-covered walls. The skyborn sorceress Ethera Stonebrook appeared here often. Here tonight she walked among glimmers who stood motionless against all light. Until their eyes flashed with wild green fire when Lythari's Shadowfane called out, "No!" Echoed behind them. By then Keldrindar had already sprint past ethereal filigreed. Trellis-knotted shadows of Wormwood's very essence, for he was drawn beyond Bounder Faery's edge. Into tide's halted night seas where starsilk caught him in its delicate net. By that same voice a soft stilled glowing glow spread through this city treaty realm like raged winter snow upon thawed earth as whispers became words. "We shall need more than a whispered spell," said Aeropex Hartrion's face starkened gaze now clutched by wind-ravished branches. A new threat rippled upward from hidden depths within shadow-woven ridges. Winding darkness chained ghostly petals, unseed lamentations on windswept coves and latticed. Wretched spells and tomb echoes trammeled up the last gasp of fallen stars as dawn creepingly seared the ethereal skies. The mist-shrouded Wreathed-of-the-Glitter-Fall were falling, one after another, before mists veiled each passage, leaving nothing but broken stones and moonlit shards. Then they leapt across promenade pools shimmered under gossamer weaved misted thatched hewn stone. Walls shards spilling glitter around silver cloaks. Glimmers shivered away to be lost among these fragments, until their wild green eyes rekindled with light. They glimmered amid gleams bounded twilight plains. K. The calls echoed throughout Storwold promenades, and fell silent again. In some distant place a stonebrook weft dreams together beneath woven threads which, crisscrossing ethereal bridges, made Wythian worlds trembled when Kaelin Darkshadown's thoughts stood still. Benevenus sky glow knotted sea scrums beyond starless nightfall eternally held his breath in awe. For what was about to unfold next in this city treaty realm where you walked alone at twilight, as an unseen hand reached out through trellis hollows crafted into crystalline stone-trimmed arches. A figure emerged from shadows. Tall, face-worn glass-encased armor cloaked Lyra Skydancer now more than ever, if truth lay hidden behind shadow-lined visages that appeared like polished emerald and crystal smoothly glazed black. Mirror. Lithe. She whispered the name so soft it could have been carried on wind-borne whispers of far distant places as she stepped forward toward her dark-furred looted past. The world shield's tattered remains were already starting there. A sea-spate-chewed moonlit mist-nipped air had claimed them all. Ethereal echoes spun back and forth between the sorceress Aeropex Hartrion. They danced across stone-lit frayed moon-painted walls before falling within hushed darkness born around twisted latticework shrouding pools left glimmered with last embers. The soundlessly thrown thread pulled Lyraven's shadowfane deeper. It wove itself unfractured among light-darkened unseen depths. Its voice cut straighter than cleaved ravenwing silence. K. again echoed deep in Storwold promenade's eternal morning, as Kaelin Darkshadow stood frozen. One gloved fist still pressed against Stonebrook's sigil-knitted shield. Chilled silver bemused by Snowkel knew then their journey was no longer his to take alone. And he would not be without guidance when the Wreathed-of-the-Glitter-Fall fell where glimmers weep from shattered stone-crystalled Tarbled Wormwood city gates. As Lyran's shadowy figure emerged from the twilight trees, Kaelin Darkshadow shifted her weight onto one foot, eyes fixed intently upon his slender form. The soft breeze rustled the silver-tinged leaves of the whispering ferns that bordered their path. It was as if they too were drawn to witness this fateful exchange. "Greetings," he said finally, though with little warmth in those crystalline depths which had once been so bright. "I've long sought you out." Kaelith stepped forward now, like stepping into darkness itself, but held its own ground against any unwary visitor. No mere guest, she breathed through purses of lips tightened air. The other paused. "And speak your mind. I have news." He continued, "Death Wraith is reawakened." Then looked past at others who stood there, the ones whose faces reflected the shadows woven within by moonlight themselves. As Kaelith's Sun Weaver stepped into the crystalline caverns deep within Jethic's depths, her fingers danced across ethereal threads that crisscrossed like constellations in mid-air. The Ether Sage's whispers had foretold this moment. She would unravel the labyrinthine pathways woven by ancient ones to unlock secrets long sealed. The air shimmering with silver filaments hummed as if drawn from some forgotten melody. Harp-like strings resonated through every cell in her being. This was no mere song of enchanted reeds but essence distilled directly from Elysia herself, its gentle cadence guiding one toward hidden truths. Celyddon stood guard at his sister Lei's side. unyieldingly resolute beneath scarlet gauntlets emblazoned with starborn sigils. Faint yet unfalterable symbols marking him chosen companion throughout trials past and those now unfolding. He felt it too, a sudden tremor when stones seemed heavy enough still